Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you joining us for today's conference, Global People Ops Pulse 2024. My name is Anjali Joseph Martin, and I have the pleasure of being your host this session. We're thrilled to have participants from around the globe, and together we'll be exploring some of the most innovative and effective people ops solutions with a panel of industry-leading coaches. These sessions aim to reshape how organizations manage talent, performance, and workplace culture. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to drop them off in the Q&A box or in the chat box. There will be a feedback poll at the end, so please stay tuned to the end. Please note that the conference is being recorded and a replay will be available to those who wish to revisit any part of today's discussions. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our incredible panel of speakers. Our first speaker for today will be kickstarting the second day of Global People Ops Pulse 2024 is Jona Wright. She will share her insights on the topic, The Other Side of You. Jona Wright is the founder of Talent Thrive Partners and an exceptional global HR leader with roles as CHRO, VP of Talent, and People Leader. With expertise in leadership development, culture, and engagement, she has coached thousands at all organizational levels. Jona holds a doctorate in executive leadership and certifications in Korn Ferry Leadership Architecture, DEI, and psychological safety. She has worked with diverse industries, focusing on innovation and breakthrough thinking. Based in Western New York, she is passionate about family, writing, and connecting with others through travel. Please join me in welcoming Jona Wright to the stage. We're all ears, Jona.
Thank you, Anjali. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I appreciate your time in joining in across the globe for this conversation. And as much as I would love to be in a room with you all and seeing faces and reading body language, we'll go about this through the full presentation mode. So I'm going to skip over my bio. That'll be available for you at some other point with the slide deck. But I wanted to talk with you this morning. This is an area that's passionate, a passion area for mine, of mine, as we are all in the human resources business and deal with people daily, and play so many roles of coach and mentor to many across the organization, and leaders in our own disciplines, and maybe leaders in other disciplines as well. So this morning, we're going to take some time. Today, we're going to take some time and we're going to really look through the lens of design thinking. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes, psychological safety, and then how you can bring this to the workplace. I'm an educator by training, so I do really hope to share some tools with you that you can take away and use immediately, and that it's a very thoughtful session. And please give me feedback along the way. I hope this can be more of a conversation as well. So in thinking about this, and this was really the introduction to this session, is we are all leaders. Everyone is a leader, right? You could be a religious leader, you can be your family leader, as a parent, as a sibling to others, a leader in the community, a community group, or our leader in a workplace, and even a quiet leader, or maybe a middle manager that really inspires and influences others. We have a chance on a daily basis to create a ripple, and it's positive or maybe not so positive. So today we're going to take some time to really bring this down to a micro level and really think about what it feels like to be on the other side of ourselves. And we're going to look through the lens of design thinking, psychological safety, and self-awareness. And what does it feel like to be on the other side of you? I hope you'll be able to start to answer that question this morning. Building psychological safety in the workplace and allowing others to bring their full selves to work is of the utmost importance right now. Bringing individualism, bringing diverse backgrounds and diverse lived experiences really does contribute to innovation. It gets away from that group think. So the next slide, I'm going to share a tool, and I can't see the chat, but this is a check-in and a centering, and this is something that you can take away to your own teams. You can look at what centering is. If you go to the Mind Tools website, there is a summary of centering. But having used this practice before with teams, checking in on a daily basis can really help as a leader understand where everyone is coming from. Maybe there was a rush start at home, maybe there was some traffic, maybe unfortunately there was an accident. I'm in Western New York, so autumn is upon us, and there are lots of deer around. But checking in can help you as a leader or you as a team member just understand where everyone is coming from at the moment. So I'm going to ask you right now, if you might, in a one word, check in how you are, where your mind space is today so far. So Anjali, because I can't see the chat, I don't know if people are responding.
People are still to respond. Yeah,
just reading off a couple of the words.
Definitely. If they do, I'll tell you.
Thank you. And I can share, I am grateful. I'm grateful to be here with all of you and sharing a passion area of my own. We can go on. So after checking in, and it can be a verbal sentence if you are on a Teams call, if time allows for it, or if you're in a daily stand-up, a data stand-up, or a startup meeting in the morning, it can just be, again, going around the group and seeing where everyone's mind space is. And it really does start to, if it's a very regular practice, it can help to promote psychological safety, that sharing, that interpersonal sharing that can be so important with team members. Centering is a place where it can be a led centering experience. There are plenty of them out on YouTube, but a centering can just be even a quiet minute to allow people to become present, whether it's for a team meeting, a morning huddle, a switch over team meeting, from a shift change, if it's in a multi-shift operation. And then again, it allows people to come and be fully present at work and in their space that we're all sharing at the moment. So I just wanted to share that as a practice that you can take away with you.
Yeah, you did get some responses.
What are some of them? I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, some of them are relaxed, some of them are excited.
Good.
Somebody who's feeling a bit calm today, and there's someone who's anxious too here.
Very good, very good. Thank you for sharing those. It's really important to understand how people are coming to work every day. So this morning we're going to talk about, I keep saying this morning, today we're going to talk about a few different things. And I just wanted to get some simple definitions up. Psychological safety, I find, is such a buzzword right now. And there are true definitions of psychological safety. Dr. Timothy Clark is over in the UK and has done tremendous work in this space. And that's where my certification comes from. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And it's really important. Psychological safety could be a whole workshop unto itself, but really looking at, through psychological safety, we build inclusion, we build trust, and in turn, innovation in teams. If people are allowed to share their ideas without being condemned or without the ideas being turned away, that can build innovation over time, because the best ideas come from ideas that come further out from the original sharing of solutions. So we really want to build psychological safety in the workplace. And again, that practice of checking in and centering can be one single step to start to really blossom psychological safety. Emotional intelligence is, again, Daniel Coleman is the grandfather of emotional intelligence, but I think that I've found recently, and would love all of your responses and reactions in terms of leadership. I feel like leadership is still in its infancy. We're still trying to understand what makes the best leaders, who are truly leaders. Sometimes leaders go by title, and they're an anointed leader because of their title and position in a company. But what we do know about leaders is true leaders inspire and influence across the organization. And that's where, as HR pros, dig deep into who those leaders are, who those people are that have influence across your organization. And we know that emotional intelligence, people who are true leaders are emotionally intelligent. They are emotionally smart. They understand themselves and they understand other people as well. They understand how they impact others. And I think that's really important to continue to remember. Emotional intelligence is not just about ourselves. It is about how we affect others, how they respond to us. So we're going to use a few of these as our lenses this morning as we talk deeper about this. Self-awareness. Again, self-awareness is a term that gets used quite frequently, but self-awareness is so important because it's really coming from our upbringing and who we are as we develop into young adults, as we develop into our adult life, and then the experiences that impact us throughout our lifetime. So it's really the insights as to who we are, our personality, which doesn't tremendously change over time, but our actions, our values, our beliefs, our emotions, and how and why we do and say and act the way we do. And that, again, could be a multi-day leadership workshop in terms of discovering that self-awareness and why we really do the things we do. So we're going to use a few of these pillars this morning as we continue to talk about what does it feel like to be on the other side of you. What we're going to do next is we are going to take a poll, our first poll of how self-aware are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I'm extremely self-aware. I really understand where I've come from and the impact it has on my life and who I am today. Now, Jali, I don't know if I get to see those poll results.
Yes, they're still giving their answers as soon as it's done.
Sure.
So we've got 8, 5, and 4. Yeah, I think
Awesome.
yes.
Great. The next slide is really, it's a stunning statistic. And as much as we can't change other people, I'm sure a lot of us can think of people that fit in this statistic that really think they are self-aware, but are 15% truly are self-aware. And this is from an HBR article, a Harvard Business Review article. So really it is thinking about, and this is where we're going to take some time this morning to think about our own self-awareness and what it feels like to be on the other side of us as HR professionals. And this talk stemmed from a talk to human resource pros. And it was really in terms of thinking about different innovation styles and mindsets that we bring. So many times traditional HR can be back office and do things to an organization, and the organization kind of looks around and says, thanks, that's not exactly what we were looking for. Whereas if we bring in the notion of co-creation and design thinking and think about what it feels like to be on the other side of us, are we bringing people into the discussion? Are we co-creating? So again, we're going to spend time just at our self level, but then you can translate this into your human resource practice, or if you're in operations, or if you're in supply chain or some other area of the business, and how to really remove some obstacles and promote engagement with ourselves. So self-aware leaders are highly correlated with better business outcomes. Leaders with a high degree of self-awareness are able to innovate, they remain agile, they really inspire other people. And companies with higher proportion of self-aware leaders tend to have better financial outcomes. So definitely a worthwhile conversation in terms of how aware leaders are of what it feels like to be on the other side of them and interact on a daily basis. So I'm going to bring in design thinking, and I'm trying not to introduce too many terms. If you haven't dove deep into design thinking, I invite you to do so. I did include this resource. If you joined Sean Bengry's session yesterday at all, there's ways that you can develop your own empathy or journey map through using AI, and I would invite you to do so. This is a simple one from Lucid Spark. There's Miro is another resource. There are lots of resources out there if you aren't already using one, where parts of your business, especially in sales and the commercial areas, are using probably empathy mapping or journey mapping. And again, this is going to take the time, we're going to take the time this morning to really think about ourselves. So if you took an empathy map, and instead of thinking about the persona that you're interacting with, I want you to put yourself on the empathy map and think about, what do other people see? What do other people hear? What do they think? And what do they feel when they interact with us? And this is power of intention and how we're coming to people. And the reason Anjali mentioned I'm Korn Ferry certified is because Korn Ferry has 38 competencies, and their competencies are really globally mapped too. And I am completely aware that sometimes some of the things we're thinking about Western world versus Eastern world don't necessarily translate culturally. So being aware of, if you are in the HR space and you're in a different culture, is it okay to take on that leadership voice, that leadership role? So it definitely is cultural, and I would think about your own cultural community as well. But it's really important to think about, what do people see? What do they hear, think, and feel? Are you an authority? Do you have credibility in your area? Do they hear, that expertise when they're talking with you? Are you relatable? Are you somebody that is approachable? In human resources, we're all about people. We focus on people and really, again, removing obstacles and promoting engagement, improving our cultures across workplaces. And how does that feel? How are we transmitting that? So at some point, I would take an empathy map or a journey map, just a blank one, and really think about that. And that can be a game changer in terms of starting to think about how it feels like to be on the other side of us. And then start asking others, ask for that feedback, ask for things that, examples of where people see you, hear you, think, in terms of what you've delivered, and what does that make them think, and how does it make them feel? And then you can create action from that. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. So some pains and gains in terms of what does it feel like to be on the other side of us. Again, I mentioned just a few minutes ago, power of intention. So again, Daniel Coleman has 6 leadership styles, and they are coercive, authoritative, affiliative, democratic, pace setting, and coaching. And the numbers on the side of the slide correlate to a little bit of an explanation of each of those. So we know that coercive can be a very corrosive leadership style. And it's one that, maybe in emergency situations, we need to use a more, I'm going to say, command and control type of leadership style. If people's safety is at risk, then we might need to tell somebody what to do. The authoritative, actually, don't think about it as authority. Authoritative is actually an inspiring type of leadership style, and it allows you to connect the shared vision of the organization to what we do on a daily basis. The affiliative is a positive and supportive leadership style. It allows people to share their ideas freely. I'm giving very brief summaries of these, but you can look them up if you aren't familiar with them and dig deeper into them. The fourth is a listening and seeking feedback style, democratic. It allows voices to be heard and contributions to be valued. So you can see that an affiliative and a democratic leadership style are going to allow that psychological safety to blossom a bit more. Pace setting is, we might see this in commercial teams. They're incentivized by meeting their goals, their quotas, but we might see it in other leadership roles across the organization. There's often a focus on perfection, and that can really cause burnout. Pace setting is not an effective leadership style. I know that at times I say I'm a recovering perfectionist, and at times I need to slow down and not leave people behind me in the dust. I need to bring them along. And that's been a focus of mine for some time. I've overcome it, but I know in my beginning leadership days, I thought I had to do everything right all the time. So we have to think about that, because we always all want to do right and do the correct thing, but how we go about doing it can cause that burnout and can backfire on us. And the 6th leadership style is a coaching leadership style. So it is absolutely with genuine interest, and it allows for real-time feedback and true growth and learning across the organization. So with a little bit of that background, we're going to go to our second poll. And the second poll is, what is your leadership style on a daily basis? And this is that true ability to really think about, okay, on a daily basis, what do I sound like? What do I feel like? What do I look like? And be honest with ourselves. So there's nobody attached to what you answer. We don't see that. So please go ahead. And what is your daily leadership style?
Jona, we have 50% democratic
Awesome.
at this point. Yeah, 25% coaching. Let's just see the results at this point. Yeah, so 53% democratic, 22% would be coaching. The rest is 8%, 6%. Yeah.
Great, great, great. So this is a real time to really think about. My next question to you is, what do I look like, sound like, and think like, and feel like when I'm at my best. And if we're a team on this call of human resource professionals, of course we are democratic, we are coaches. Think about what it feels like, when I'm not at my best, when I'm stressed. There's an organizational priority that is on the annual operating plan. That's one direction, and what we're trying to get done on a daily basis is another direction. So when that stress comes, and I find that right now in human resources, I think there might be a lot of stress and pressure. So think about when I'm not at my best, what does that feel like? What do I sound like? And what do I think like? And what does it feel like to be on the other side of me? Dr. Will Sparks is out of North Carolina, and he has something called the Actualized Leader Profile. It's a much deeper, he's turned it into a 360-degree tool, but I did share the link here, and it does give you a very quick online free assessment. And I'm sharing that with you because it will give back 3 different kinds of leadership style, and it'll give you back what you look like when you're at your best. And then he refers to it as when you're in your shadows. So when we're shadowed by pressure or stress or external forces. And it can be a helpful tool to really just start thinking about, what does it feel like when I'm not at my best? And this can also help as a parent, as a spouse, as a grandparent, an aunt and uncle, in our own personal lives as well. So Goldman, in his 2000 article that really focused on the styles of leadership, and that's where those 6 leadership styles come from. And a dated article, but it's a cornerstone article in leadership and emotional intelligence. And he, from that article, says, the most effective leaders can flex on their style. It's very fluid. And going back to those 6 leadership styles, they have reasons and rationale for dipping in and out of those styles. So again, I invite you today to really at the end go away and think about, where am I today? Where do I want to be? And what is my plan in between? And again, the empathy and journey map can help with that. And these are all tools that you can bring to a leadership team too. If you have that seat at the table, you're sitting with the senior leadership team, the executive leadership team, and they give you a day in the quarterly meeting to really focus on leadership and development, this is a great opportunity to think about how to do this. So we're going to move into, in the next few slides, in the next few minutes, we're going to move into psychological safety and a little bit more about psychological safety based on Dr. Timothy Clark's work around psychological safety from Leader Factor. And so if we had a little bit more time and we could chat a little bit more about this, we'd talk about what is psychological safety and what it is not. So I just put some brief definitions here. This is something that I think is a conversation that's worthwhile in organizations, because I've found that psychological safety is a lot of opinion based and what people think it is and what it's not. And I think as human resource pros, it's really important to write down definitions and what does the organization agree around a definition, so that everyone is squared away on that and very clear and succinct on what it means. So psychological safety is something that has entered into the workplace. I think it's post-pandemic. It's come in terms of how can we allow people to bring their whole selves to work, and really understanding individuals and what people bring to our workplace. And so psychological safety allows for that open communication and embracing mistakes, if you will. So if we go back to design thinking, and design thinking in the basis of it is iterating quick and making mistakes, and they're allowable, and then reiterating and really putting out a minimal viable product and really adjusting from there. So within your teams, do you allow mistakes? Do you allow people, and I'm not talking about mistakes that will impact the whole organization or finance or something like that. But if people don't know, are they allowed to say they don't know? And are we teaching them? Are we educating them? And going back to how everyone weighed in your leadership style, are we being democratic? Are we being coaches around this? We want to continue to model that way. what psychological safety is not, and I have found I've had to definitely define this with people, is it is not the avoidance, excuse me, of accountability. It's not the avoidance of conflict. And that could be a whole other session too in managing conflict. And it's not saying anything without consequence. It's not the free speech to just say whatever is on our mind. That actually degrades psychological safety, but it is creating an environment where people can challenge ideas. And we're going to talk about that in a minute in terms of the 4 stages of psychological safety. So according to Dr. Timothy Clark, he defines 4 stages of psychological safety, and he really looks at the most basic level is inclusion safety. And if you were on the call right before we started, I asked Angeli how to say her name. My name is Jona. It often, when I join calls, it gets mispronounced, and I'm going to use that as the basic example of inclusion safety, including people, calling them by name. Really getting to know our team members can really help build that respect across our teams and the acceptance. And that's the basic level of psychological safety. And then these really build, and we take inclusion safety to learner safety. Again, do we allow 53% of the people said they were democratic and 22% said they were coaching. So to challenge that, do we allow for that continuous learning? And I'm going to say unlearning too, getting away from some of the habits that we've had. Sometimes in human resources, I hear that's the way we've always done it, and people don't want to move on. So how can we get people to think a little bit differently with a growth mindset? So that learner safety is really, really important to build to contributor safety, which allows people to bring their unique skills and ideas to the team. And again, a precursor to challenger safety, which is the highest level of psychological safety. So through being included, through being able to learn, through being able to contribute, challenger safety allows us to challenge the status quo. I would love to give some thumbs up, give some hearts if this resonates with you. If you're in an organization or on a team that allows for productive struggle, people can speak up. I think this morning on LinkedIn, I just saw a poll of, if people speak up in your organization, are they punished or are they prized? And there were a lot of responses. I don't know who put the poll out, but responses around the poll that people are punished for speaking up. So how can we create that psychological safety? Again, communication needs to be with safety, excellence, and respect. This isn't a call for being disrespectful, but it is a call to allow people to challenge ideas and see the troubleshooting in ideas so that we can move to our best ideas. So the next few slides, I'm just going to give you some tips and some thoughts around inclusion safety, learner safety, and the other 2 stages of psychological safety. Again, going back to acknowledging and greeting people. I'd love for you to also throw some ideas in the chat of what other ideas you have for inclusion safety. But respecting differences, and you can see where that can evolve into the challenger safety. And when we have other people's lived experiences, that can really bring a different light to innovation, because we have very different thinking coming to a new idea and solution finding. Using inclusive language and celebrating diversity. And again, that inclusion safety, if we celebrate diversity and diverse voices in our teams, and they can seem like dissenting voices sometimes because they can come across as that challenge, that can really get us to that next level, not only of psychological safety, but of innovation as well. Learner safety is really allowing, questions, allowing people to say, I don't know. And on the other side of us, do we allow that? Do we allow people to admit their mistakes? Do we allow people to offer constructive criticism? Is that allowed in the entire organization? A lot of times, managers in one-to-one protocols are allowed to give the feedback to their team members, but is that also reciprocated, and is that allowed managing up? And how do our leaders receive feedback as well? And sometimes that feedback is really critical. In one organization, our really packed around communication was safety, excellence, respect, and kind, necessary, and true. And sometimes as human resource professionals, we all know that kind can be, hey, warning somebody about, I'm going to say, that pothole over there that you're about to step in. So watching out for people. And I've been on teams where leaders do want to know, how did that sound? How did that feel? Was that okay? And learner safety is almost getting ahead of that and seeing how we can prevent that instead of just looking backward and being reactive. Our contributor safety is really recognizing and leveraging strengths across our team. The best leaders really hire people that do things and can do things that they can't do, the leaders can't do themselves. So are we leveraging the talent on our teams? And if you don't have a team, where are those resources across the organization that can help you really get to where you need to be too, and your priorities and the work that you're doing? The one thing I am going to point out here is it says, provide public acknowledgement. And I really want to go to something called the Platinum Rule. If you haven't heard about it, I'm sure many people on this call have. But instead of the Golden Rule, treating others how you want to be treated, it's really treating others. The Platinum Rule talks about treating others how they want to be treated. So I know I've been in public recognition, I'm going to call them ceremonies or celebrations, and somebody really doesn't want to be acknowledged that way. So making sure that we as leaders also recognize how people want to be acknowledged, how they want to be given feedback. Are we giving feedback in front of a group, or are we taking somebody aside and doing it in private, which is the best way to really contribute or build this contributor safety and psychological safety? And lastly, challenger safety. Do we allow for, are there ground rules? Are there norms within our teams that allow for, I'm going to say, open debate? And it's really not an argument, but again, productive struggle, allowing to bring new ideas to the table that might challenge the solution that's already there. And being transparent. One tip here is using an I statement. So saying, I feel like, instead of you do this and this is what happens. So again, if you go to Mind Tools and the Power of I and look that up, there's lots around that. So we're coming in on the end. I'm watching time, and I want to make sure that we get to everything that we're going to, and still allow for some questions. It's a pretty quick session. I'm going to bring us back to the empathy map. And I'm going to ask you again during the course of the next couple days or weeks to grab a blank sheet of paper or some type of document, or go online and get yourself an empathy map or a journey map. And instead of mapping the journey of the other person or the team that's on the other side of human resources or within the organization, really spend some time on yourself and really thinking about what it feels like to be on the other side of us. It can be really, really refreshing, and it can really help us unlock some potential in ourselves. So map out what individuals and teams see in leadership behaviors from us, what they hear in our tone, in our messaging. Sometimes it's sitting back from an email and saying, what's my intention here? What does this sound like to the other person? Am I replying all? Am I copying in their manager? What is the purpose of that? And could it be a phone call? Could it be a conversation in a hallway? What other teams and individuals think? What are their assumptions about us? Why do they make their assumptions? Finding a critical friend across the organization and asking them some of these questions too, and get ready to hear what they have to say and be ready for that and create some action around that. What are the feelings that we elicit from others? I don't know, being a people person. The hardest thing right now for me is I can't see anyone. But what are other people feeling? I like to look at body language. I look at people's expressions and see how they're reacting to me and how I can do better. What can I do to bring them in, to relate to them better? And we have to have crucial conversations. We have to have critical conversations. But again, those are the most important times to really consider what does it feel like to be on the other side of us. To wrap up, I'm always about a 30, 60, 90-day plan, because otherwise a workshop is a sit and get. You got some information and it goes by the wayside. And if you want me to be your accountability partner, my contact information's in the next slide, and I'm happy to do that work with you. But 30 days, what's your short-term plan? What can you do in the next 24 hours? What's something that is a takeaway that you can either put in place at home with family? This is a chance to do that as well and decontextualize it from work. Or what can I do with this work, this body of work in my workplace on a daily basis? And maybe this is just having a simple conversation with a team member and asking them. It's a pretty big question. So in the next 24 hours, what are you going to do? In the next 30 days, what are you going to do? 60 days, and then 90 days brings us almost to the new year. So what are those in 60 days? What do you want to change in the next 2 months? You know, we're starting to, at least in the United States, the year end gets very, very busy, a lot of compliance, a lot of legal regulations in terms of reporting and human resources. And that can be a crunch time, that can be a stressor time. And then 90 days, what do you want this to look like into the new year? And maybe this makes it into, if you have an annual performance review, maybe some of these goals make it into that. And if you're fortunate enough to have annual performance reviews gone, and maybe it's a monthly conversation with a manager, having this honest conversation and still making it a goal into 2025. So start to reflect, ask yourself, what's my plan? What am I going to do to this? And just keep in mind, every day we have a chance to impact others. What's your impact going to be? So I thank you. And Anjali, I can end the slide presentation if there's a chance to answer questions and either see people or hear people. I'm happy to do so.
So there's Shruti here who says she loves the concept of the empathy mapping that you put up.
Awesome. Awesome.
If there's any questions, you all can put it in the Q&A box and we'll answer them for you.
I'm going to end and I will put this back up. Yes, important for improving workplace culture for sure. And a great session to hold with leaders, especially emerging leaders who sometimes don't have some tools to develop their self-awareness.
Is Isha wanting to speak? I can see your hand up. You're raised your hand, so please unmute and you'd be able to speak. Okay, so there's Esther here who's asking us, how long does it take for one to reach the self-awareness capacity?
Huh. I think that that's a great question. That's a really great question. And I don't know if you're asking for yourself or asking for, hey, I observe some other leaders and how long does that take? And I just had a very vibrant conversation about this recently with a leader. Self-awareness really does start with the want and desire to become self-aware. So through coaching, if somebody wants to get there and really wants to understand where they're prohibiting others from being their best selves, they'll get there a lot faster than somebody who's really resisting the coaching or the ability to become self-aware. So I can't put a time frame on it. I've seen people in various instances through recovery of substance abuse, through divorce, through a major maybe life event, that self-awareness, they hit rock bottom. They hit a place where self-awareness has to become part of what they do, or they're not going to move on from where they are. So I've seen people where, because something happened in their lives, it happens quite quickly. And then I've seen other people completely resist it and they just never become self-aware and they're in complete denial. It's again, it starts back at usually looking at our childhood and why we are who we are and why we act the way we do. So happy to help further if you want to reach out for further conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jona.
Absolutely.
Key takeaway, I think, for me would be focusing on oneself and how other people look at you, right? I think that was yeah.
Yes.
Thank
And
you so much.
Anjali, I'm going to put you on the spot. Anjali has been awesome to be on the other side of her. She answers every single question I had all the way from like May or June until now, and in a transition especially. So thank you. It was wonderful to be on the other side of you and your team.
Thank you so much. So thank you once again, Jona.
Thank you.
I'm sure everybody enjoyed this session. Got a lot of reactions. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you. We'd be sending out the feedback poll at this point. Please feel encouraged to send in your valuable insights. In the next 7 minutes, we'll be getting on to the next session. Thank you. Thank you, Jona.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.